McGraw-Hill Professional presents Lead Generation for the Complex Sale. Boost the quality and quantity of leads to increase your ROI. Written by Brian J. Carroll. Narrated by Randal Schaffer. Introduction. Keeping the pipeline full of qualified leads is vitally important in today's challenging business climate. So important, in fact, that consistent lead generation is often imperative to a company's very survival. Add to the equation that your sale always seems to be more complex than most, and the challenge becomes downright daunting, doesn't it? Exactly what is a complex sale? It is associated with businesses that are engaged in long-term sales processes that require prolonged education and nurturing of the prospect, frequently over a 6 to 36-month sales cycle. Companies that use the complex sale provide solutions to their clients that tend to be sophisticated, designed to solve crucial business issues, and are managed deliberately and with precision. Ultimately, these solutions can require significant investment of dollars and the buy-in of the company's senior management. The complex sale most often manifests itself in the business-to-business environment, though it's not always limited to that sector. Because of the unique demands of the complex sale, lead generation has become a major roadblock for marketers as they spin their wheels looking for strategies and tactics that can consistently and measurably push the sales needle forward. Why is lead generation inherently more challenging in the complex sale? Fewer opportunities. Although the deal value of each sale is extremely high, there are simply fewer opportunities as compared to more transactional selling environments. More attention, therefore, must be paid to identifying those relatively few and valuable opportunities. Commoditization is more difficult to overcome. Marketers must work much more diligently and creatively to differentiate their organizations from increasing competition. Exposure is not enough. There must be a value proposition that resonates with prospects. Increased selling at the executive level. There must be a more intelligent and varied approach to reaching and converting executives who are more often the economic buyers for complex solutions. Must reach the sphere of influence. Buying processes frequently involve a team approach. Enlisting the support of one decision-maker is rarely enough. The sphere of influence must be identified and a targeted, multi-pronged approach taken to reach as many as possible. Less selling time. Because of longer sales cycles, salespeople cannot afford to spend time on unqualified leads. They must focus attention on opportunities that have the greatest likelihood of closing. Return on investment. Direct return from lead generation activity takes time to surface. A solid plan for reporting and measuring reliable indicators must be in place to justify continued investment. At my company, we wonder, how did it get to be like this? The scope and complexity of the business of lead generation have grown enormously since we began as a teleprospecting firm in 1995, and we occasionally just have to step back and exclaim, wow. In all respects, there was a time that carrying on a conversation was much easier than it is now, and that is no more evident than in the marketplace. It used to be easier to talk with high-level executives because there simply were not as many barriers to beginning the conversation. A shift that marked the increasing difficulty in reaching people became apparent in the early 1990s. To those of us involved in producing leads for salespeople back then, calling the prospect on the phone with a short pitch more often than not initiated a conversation leading to an appointment. Advances in technology have made that a thing of the past. The objectives of good dialogue and conversation have not changed, but the ways of winning the complex sale today are decidedly different. The Internet email, and voicemail had not yet begun to revolutionize communication. Most companies didn't use voicemail or email to any great extent, and the Internet was just moving beyond its limited university campus profile. Caller ID didn't exist on most corporate phone systems. A letter posted by mail was ordinarily the most effective way of communicating on business matters, and the fax machine was the only rapid means of communication. Executive assistants were the primary point of access. The practice of selling became more complex as the business climate evolved, in many ways spurred by the burgeoning communications technologies. It became apparent to us that a formal lead generation discipline was very much in order, particularly in light of the changing face of sales and marketing for the complex sale. Our exposure dictated that an intelligent, sophisticated, multimodal, integrated solution would be needed if lead generation was going to be effective going forward. No more cookie-cutter tactics. We were seeing technologies that would give us the ability to tailor and personalize our reach, and there began the results that have made lead generation what it is today. So, plain and simply, the purpose of this book is to help marketers and corporate leaders assemble the necessary tools to more confidently develop customer relationships, with the importance of business-to-business lead generation for the complex sale always in mind. Our approach is a holistic one that recognizes that lead generation must include sales and marketing efforts that work together in harmony towards the common end. It dispels common myths and provides proven strategies and tactics that can be replicated and implemented immediately in the interest of developing new customers and improving your return on investment, ROI. Most of what I say in this book deals with companies that have a direct sales force. Generally, these principles also hold true for those with a sales channel or those who sell through partners or channels. Regardless of sales structure, experience dictates that the complex sale, more often than not, entails a consultative approach to selling. A mindset that is consultative starts well before opportunities are handed over to sales. It is a long-term process that engages targeted prospects as early in the buying process as possible, and it does not relegate to the garbage bin those not ready to buy yet. A well-conceived plan that keeps the lead generation vehicle on track is necessary. Consider that a cross-country trip requires the aid of both itinerary and map to arrive on time. Without proper planning and direction, you tend to get lost, wander aimlessly, likely take a lot of different side roads, or end up traveling the same old routes. So too for lead generation, and frequently with the same unsatisfactory results. My hope is that this book can become your roadmap in a direct and timely way for customizing your own plan for achieving a successful lead generation program that will bring you new customers and accelerate your growth rate. Part 1. Fundamentals of Lead Generation for the Complex Sale. Chapter 1. Essential Lead Generation. Not like it used to be. It wasn't long ago that lead generation campaigns were largely based on unfocused direct mail campaigns, along with, perhaps, a flashy website, sporadic trade show appearances, innumerable email blasts, and on-again, off-again telemarketing campaigns that had little to do with the rest. All with the express hope that somehow something would work. If this is your lead generation strategy and you're still waiting for results, I'm here to say, stop. Studies confirm that response rates for lead generation campaigns of this nature, the old way, just don't work. The course of passive reactivity is of little value in pursuing the complex sale. The business scene today is rife with new competition. Budgets are shrinking, and marketing and sales teams are stretched to the limit to do more with less. Many business-to-consumer marketing resources exist, but they're of little relevance in business-to-business, where the complex sale, a phenomenon in its own right, requires a holistic approach that considers all of the marketing and selling components on a total, complete, and ongoing basis. CEOs traditionally feel they aren't getting enough activity at the top of the sales funnel and demand more leads. Any kind of leads will do, it seems, as long as they are right now. Marketers, on the other hand, must continually face the exasperation of having too few high-quality leads and are forced to choose immediate tactics over better long-term planning and execution. Salespeople, in their primary quest for increased sales, operate under the pressure to more effectively utilize their available leads. In either case, the generation of leads today calls for much more than salespeople getting on the phone in an attempt to schedule appointments. Sadly, this is the exercise in futility where a great many talented salespeople still find themselves trapped. In the end, poorly conceived and executed lead generation is a major impediment to growth. Who is responsible for generating leads in the complex sale? Unfortunately, the time-honored struggle of sales to get a foot in the door fails miserably in context of the complex sale. To be successful, a carefully crafted, thoroughly researched, and proven lead generation strategy cannot come from sales, any more than should modern salespeople be burdened with the old, worn-out tactic of cold call prospecting. Salespeople must be enabled to do what they do best, to sell, with leads that have been qualified as sales-ready. In lead generation, the job of the marketing department is to develop leads to match the buyer's readiness to buy and the seller's expectations of selling. Marketing to sales. We get the leads, you get the sales. Although sales leads can be generated in any number of ways, some better than others, the high-quality, high-value kind so necessary to the complex sale is quite another matter. Marketing, by virtue of its province, should be responsible for the actual process of lead generation, if not for accountability, then for ensuring that the definition of a qualified lead is properly followed and measured. Marketers must have the perspective to know when the lead is sales ready. Marketers can then more effectively manage the lead generation process and be better placed to measure ROI and revenue contributions. Nevertheless, there are some organizations that, for various reasons, still place the responsibility of lead creation with the sales sector. While I disagree that this is the most effective way to generate leads, it's important to note that the tenets offered here can be just as valuable in any case. Let sales sell. According to research by Serious Decisions, during the last 5 years, the average sales cycle has gotten to be 22% longer, typically with 3 more decision makers participating in the buying process. With the reduced administrative support that there seems to be across the board, more of the seller's time must be spent on writing reports, keeping pace with customers, and maintaining paperwork. Experience with clients of my company points to as little as 35 to 40% of the sales staff's time being available for actually moving the sales process forward. And because of the multitude of interrelated aspects of the complex sale, the salesperson is often expected to remain involved beyond the buy, and that can go right through implementation and subsequent ongoing service. Whether to put more money into sales or into marketing is a dilemma faced by many senior executives. Individuals charged with selling a company's products or services would tell you they need more selling time to generate increased revenue, not more sales leads. And the truth of the matter is, there are a number of indicators supporting the contention that they do have too much else to do and not enough time to sell. In his book, Return on Marketing Investment, Guy R. Powell notes that CEOs often wonder, why should I invest in marketing, lead generation, when I can hire more salespeople for the same budget and see a measurable increase in revenue? Contrarily, our research shows for the complex sale, it is far more effective to support proven salespeople with good lead generation than to hire additional salespeople. Still, salespeople succeed in spite of it all. They may have to generate their own leads in one way or another to meet their revenue and sales targets. They're often compelled to do their own prospecting for leads independent of any corporate marketing programs. Remember, the sales team is either doing selling activities or prospecting activities. It's like a teeter-totter. When prospecting, the teeter-totter is up, and when pursuing a hot deal, it is down. Today, it takes new salespeople, and hence their productivity, longer to get up to speed. Product and service-wise, companies are in constant flux, and salespeople have more to sell, more to do. Cross-selling and upselling often suffer. Where does all of this take us? Current business trends show that complex sales products and services are being commoditized faster, margins are eroding, and salespeople have less time to acquire the necessary knowledge to sell properly as trusted, consultative advisors to their customers. In addition, there are many other issues happening that are affecting whether or not a prospect will buy. For example, companies have many more choices that can solve their needs. The time required to get consensus is taking much longer. The status quo, decision delay, is increasing. In addition, the sales landscape has gotten much more competitive. Salespeople are forced to sell in situations where they're merely column fodder on a potential customer's spreadsheet. In such situations, sales proposals are simply used to justify a vendor selection decision, a determination that already has been made. Unbeknownst to the salespeople, they may even be responding to nothing more than an RFP, request for proposal, coming from association with a well-entrenched competitor. Sales teams, unfortunately, aren't always equipped for this new paradigm, nor are the company's marketing processes able to adapt. As the complexity increases, so does the challenge of being able to find a clear value proposition. This is why marketing must assume a pivotal role to help the sales team sell. Marketing must now go beyond the sales lead. For all intents and purposes, lead generation must be looked at to drive more sales. If not, consider it wasted expense, time, and effort. In the traditional sales funnel, the objective is to convert more leads faster. However, an Aberdeen group study found that salespeople don't necessarily want more leads, but rather more selling time with viable opportunities. Universal lead defined. Additionally, a lot of money is squandered every day because companies lack a clear understanding of what a sales lead really means. Consequently, they fail to make lead definition a credible facet of their business. There is consensus among numerous sources that sales fails to act on upwards of 80% of the leads it gets, an astounding fact if anywhere near accurate. More than likely, that number is so high because most of the leads that sales receive aren't qualified leads or appropriate buyers for what's being sold. By definition, a universal sales lead is one that has been determined to fit the profile of the ideal customer, has been qualified as sales ready, and spells out responsibilities and accountabilities of the participants in the program, sales, and marketing. Actually, our own research reveals that only 1 out of every 10 companies operates under a lead definition that both sales and marketing have agreed upon. There is no better catalyst for building ties between sales and marketing, and no better way to generate a greater return on marketing investment than the premise that everyone knows what a sales lead really and truly means. Lead generation represents an important marketing investment, and the systematic development of good lead generation is increasingly a strategic imperative worldwide. The right culture, strategy, and tactics are required to make this a cost-effective outlay. It seems that companies have little problem generating inquiries, but inquiries as such are rarely useful without an adequate process to qualify them as sales-ready, and will often promote activity that produces little result. Chapter 3 provides an in-depth discussion of creating a universal lead definition for the complex sale. Reaching the decision makers. The complex sale requires that salespeople develop relationships within higher levels of management, often top-level executives. It is the job of marketing to pave the way by providing opportunity to develop these relationships. To reach C-level executives, salespeople must have a strategic dialogue that's relevant to the prospect's interests in return on investment and predictable growth for their stakeholders. The paradigm is one that makes the salesperson a trusted advisor who adds value to the proposition, with the goal of increasing the odds of success for both parties. In this paradigm, salespeople can no longer tout their solutions as simply better, faster, and cheaper, and hope to get the attention of these higher-level economic buyers. And for the very same reason, a lead generation program aimed at reaching these same prospects must focus on value propositions that speak directly to the right decision makers at the right time in the buying process. Why is trust so important? Economic buyers increasingly avoid talking to salespeople, if at all possible. It seems there is a decided lack of trust in salespeople, and, truth told, they just don't want to be sold. A wealth of readily available information from the Internet and other sources delays the need and value of face-to-face contact with the salesperson until later phases of the buying process. And when at last a participant, to be successful, the salesperson must earn the recognition of trusted advisor. It's been said that trusted advisors are 70% more likely to come away with a sale. That becomes easier to understand when you consider that people buy based on emotion and then backfill with logic. Trust has become the theme for a new type of marketing. It's about the relationship. In today's commoditized business climate, the thing that sets companies apart is their ability to create and develop relationships. Companies that understand the concept of how to develop trust and follow with specific actions are positioned to grow and prosper as none other. Decision makers will tell you they value the sales interaction that instills trust that the solution will make their professional lives better. To establish the confidence that your company can provide, buyers must be familiar with you, your company, and what you do. Buyers must perceive that you and your company are expert in your field. Buyers must believe that you and your company understand their specific needs and can solve them. Buyers must like you and your company enough to want to work with you. It is important to view potential customers as unique individuals, and in pursuit of their trust, it is time well spent getting to know everything you can about what they do and how they think. How do they work? What are their needs? Where do they go for research? Who, in fact, are they? Trust comes from respecting where the prospect is in the buying process, and accordingly, selecting the communication tactics that are warranted. With clear understanding of the buying process, you can remain productively visible throughout. Messaging, content, and tactics are then targeted as is appropriate. The right value proposition, delivered via the correct tactics and on a consistent basis, puts timing in your favor. Be cognizant, then, of what needs to be provided at each stage of the buying process, thus enabling a comfortable transition to the next stage when ready. Matching your strategy with your customer's strategy. In Mastering the Complex Sale, Jeff Toole notes that salespeople struggle with the complex sale because their customers do not have a clear buying process defined. He advocates that companies help customers develop appropriate criteria with which to make informed decisions. How will your prospects make informed decisions that will be good for you if they don't have the parameters in their buying process? Better they turn to you as a trusted advisor than to uninformed colleagues, or to the Internet, or to trade publications, or, heaven forbid, to your competitors. Designing around the customer's buying process and all it represents is as critical as it gets in the development of good lead generation. So how is this done? It all starts with the right lead generation strategy. Successful lead generation is predicated on a firm foundation of strategy. It's getting to be universal, however, that marketers are under extreme pressure to provide more leads now, which tends to prompt an errant emphasis on tactics over strategy. CEOs pay great lip service to the concept of marketing strategy, yet the concern remains overriding that there's never enough activity in the sales funnel. Marketers, therefore, doing exactly as they're directed, following orders, under such circumstances, don't follow the general truth that only with good strategy come the right tactics. Meanwhile, there isn't much to move the sales needle. In addition, with the increasing involvement of upper management and in light of today's buying decision processes, it's clear that much of the selling takes place when the salesperson isn't present. The number of individuals brought into the act of buying, as defined by the complex sale, has increased by 3 over the past 5 years. Not only is the average sales cycle longer and more complex, there are more principles tending to the customer's interests. The era of selling to one economic buyer is long gone. Decisions are now consensus-driven, with more stakeholders weighing in on the decision. Consequently, the lead generation effort must reach beyond one individual buyer. Astute marketers today recognize that there's an entire sphere of influence represented by contacts associated with the economic buyers. For example, influencers, information gatherers, opinion molders, and an external sphere of influence represented by end users. All must be addressed with equal intensity. The more you reach, the better. Marketers are charged with the responsibility of measuring, identifying, and optimizing performance. The complex sale means working within your prospect's corporate structure. A recent visit to a company revealed a CEO, a sales manager, and a marketing director with altogether divergent views on who was responsible for what. It was quickly apparent that each represented an important target to be reached and influenced equally. A sign of the times is that no one seems to feel compelled anymore to make decisions without consensus. Perhaps a bit paradoxically, companies seem bent on doing more with less. And if that puts you in the position of failing to reach the right individual at the right time, then no one's purposes are served well, yours or the prospect's. Exactly who is that person? Do your homework, and then go for the broadest potential group to increase the odds that you're reaching someone who can make the final decision. All of them. A client's CEO asks his marketing manager, "What are our most effective tactics for generating leads?" The marketers reply, "All of them." What? Well, simply put, you cannot rely on a single marketing medium for generating leads. For strength and stability, a table requires all 4 legs. To lose one is to become less sound, less secure. So too with lead generation. Do you rely on a minimum of tactics, maybe to save $1? Or do you proceed with a strong and stable base? Lead generation is an iterative process. You must monitor and adjust your tactics based on your results. For the complex sale, a proper lead generation program requires a disciplined and multimodal approach. A director of marketing comments, "I look at our lead generation efforts, specifically in this economy, as I might a financial portfolio. If I can't measure the tactics or programs in terms of return on investment, leads generated, business closed, opportunities in the funnel, then why should I expect anyone to invest in my fund?" Valuable tools to use with lead generation. Let's briefly explore 3 key elements that are crucial for success with any lead generation program. Closed-loop feedback is crucial. When routed to the sales department,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?